Okay, here we'll see how to accurately make a styrofoam former. First of all, why do we need styrofoam formers? Well, in this case, I'm making one for laminating plywood. In other words, for gluing lots of thin sheets of plywood together to form a single curved sheet. So let's start. I've drawn the side view of the former on CAD, and I'm cutting it out of thin card on the laser cutter. The curve at the top of the shape is the curve I want my piece of laminated plywood to end up. This card cutout is going to be the template for drawing my shape onto styrofoam. The laser cutter is super smooth and really quick, and the only limitations to what you can do are what you can draw on CAD. The first thing to do with the styrofoam is to check that the edge you're going to line the template up with is absolutely flat. I'm using a long straight edge here to check for a flat surface. If any light comes through between the ruler and the foam, the surface isn't flat. And I can position my template against the edge, happy that my work will be accurate. It's important that the pencil I'm going to use is sharp, so I'm sharpening it here with a knife. The exposed lead shouldn't be too long. Too long and it'll break when pressure is applied. Marking the styrofoam for cutting is quite straightforward, but it's worth noting that I'm drawing the pencil backwards without applying too much pressure. Pushing the pencil downwards, or worse, forwards, is just going to result in the lead biting into the styrofoam and making a nasty mess. Now with a mid-sized template such as this, you'll probably find it's not necessary to tape it to the styrofoam. It shouldn't move if you hold it down carefully. If the template was much smaller or bigger, a few small pieces of masking tape to keep it from moving would be a good idea. Here I'm lifting the blade guard on the bandsaw to allow for the full width of styrofoam to pass through during cutting. On with the dust extraction, and regardless of how much blade is exposed, it's always important to keep hands well away. I'm just roughing out with this first cut. It's difficult to be particularly accurate at this stage, and it will be a lot easier with smaller pieces. I've repositioned the template 4 times here, and I'm using the panel saw to make a cut that won't fit on the bandsaw. Now carefully and slowly I'm making the final cut, and I want to end up with 4 pieces that are as identical as possible, and this will mean that there's limited finishing with sandpaper required at the end. As a rule, I'll try and cut as much as possible and sand as little as possible. So I'm cutting along the waist side of the pencil line, in other words through the material that would be recycled, but I'm being really careful to leave the pencil line untouched. I've repeated this process 4 times, and before I go any further, I need to glue the pieces together to make the large block. I'm using impact adhesive here, so I check there's no dust on any of the surfaces I'm gluing, and apply a nice liberal coating to both pieces. Here I'm repeating the process with the other 2 pieces. I've allowed the impact adhesive time to dry and to become tacky. And you only get one shot here, so you have to line these up very carefully and bring them together as accurately as you can. It's important to leave a good 5 minutes to allow the adhesive to become tacky. If this stage is rushed, the joint in the foam will be very weak and will most likely fail at some point. Now I'm going to have to do some sanding here, and I don't really want to be using a small piece of sandpaper on a small sanding block because there's a risk of working one area more than another. So I'm making a large sanding block to help me sand uniformly across the former. I'm using coarse 60 grit sandpaper which will make quick work of the styrofoam, and I'm sticking it to a length of plywood. I'm attaching the two together with more impact adhesive and then gluing a handle onto the back with some 2-part super glue. Any inaccuracies in the former could well show up in the finished laminated plywood piece, so it's well worth putting in the effort. Being coarse, the sandpaper can tear the styrofoam, so I'm drawing it towards myself to limit the chances of that happening. I'm working evenly over the whole surface and using my straight edge to be sure I'm not oversanding any areas. I'll keep on checking until I'm happy with the quality of my work. I hope you've enjoyed watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and if you like the video, please hit like and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram at Product Designer Maker. Thanks for watching.